Hey, what's up, everybody? One Peg here. So there have been some updates, changes, modifications with this patch that came out. We did a whole lot of testing, and this video serves as my personal experience having tested everything. I say my personal experience because there are certain pieces and parts of this, like the netcode, for instance, that I will not have enough evidence to be able to support or refute. That's going to have to be a larger body of work where a whole bunch of other content creators and stuff and the community at large ends up doing whatever amount of testing, gameplay, whatever that they do, and then we kind of all come to one big consensus. What I would say is that if you're paying attention to things like socials, that you start looking at the frequency that people are talking about netcode. See if it's as much or as severe, as excessive as what it was before today. And then maybe we'll be able to come up with an idea of whether or not the netcode was actually made to be better or not. Now, I do have a little bit of footage about that, but here's the thing. The testing that I did and trying to sync everything up the way I did it, and it looks good. The problem is it looks too good. The way that it came out, when I synced everything up, we used like a world clock from an external website and synced everything up, and the way that it came out was too good. Like, it would be potentially the best netcode or some of the best netcode that has ever existed in gaming. And the more likely scenario is that I screwed something up. Unfortunately, that I'm going to set to the side because I think that this deserves some like significantly more testing than what it is that I'm capable of performing at this point in time. Only a handful of comparative hours into this entire like test bed worth of time. And I'm going to revisit it, try and come back and see if I can find something that's a little bit more solid. And if I can, in the meantime, obviously, we'll just kind of pay attention to socials and see what people are saying. I think that's fair. Now, that brings me to the limb damage, the 30% reduced damage. That happened this morning. We did a test, and there's a video from this morning when I tested it. Did you see Rangar's video on Twitter about limb damage? Did you see my video on YouTube about limb damage, Salbrus? Not yet? What the fuck are you doing? Go to YouTube right now, young man. As of right now, Applezor, the lead CM for BSG, wrote the following. Escape from Tarkov community, 30% damage reduction now applies to all limbs and not only legs and arms. And he said hands. So exactly like it's mentioned in the patch notes. Bosses spawn according to event pictures. So again, the event is still ongoing, but this was effectively nerfed. See, what had been happening was, I guess the way it was calculated was that the stomach, the chest, and the head weren't part of the damage reduction calculation. The only damage reduction that was being applied when you shot limbs was to the other limbs that hadn't been blacked out yet. But that effectively ended up doing the same thing because the radiating damage percentages, the ratios for the head, the chest, and the stomach were still going to be the same no matter what. So the time to kill was just unchanged. The only time or only scenario that it would have been changed is if, say, somebody had some radiating damage to the other limbs, as well as the chest and head, and then they somehow managed to take the time to heal their chest and their head, which would allow them to take additional damage because the limbs weren't recording as much as they were before. But again, that doesn't normally happen, so that's why we're here now. So we talked about it, and Noise Guy put out a poll earlier today, and overwhelming, like 70% of the responses were, yes, please add this. We want to have leg meta nerfed. Now, obviously, there are going to be voices of dissent. There are going to be people that don't like this. And of course, you can't please everyone. But again, and I know that this sounds like a broken record, but we are in a beta testing phase, right? And the idea is to test things. And if this seems like it's excessive, then maybe they dial it back. Maybe they should. Right now, though, I do, as a KS23 enjoyer and a champion of the Legland Express fan club, okay, as the president, I mean, for F's sake, I've got kneecaps as my channel points, you know, I still say that this is a better move. It was a little bit too powerful, I think, in my opinion. 30% might be too much, though. So maybe it needs to be dialed back. But again, that comes with the testing. So that's why we're here. If it sucks, then, you know, maybe they put a little bit back and we play with it. Maybe it's 15%. Maybe that's the magic number. Who knows? We'll find out. Okay, on to audio stuff. And there's a couple of things here. One of these things is really cool, and the other thing is kind of like head-scratching. When the patch notes talked about audio occlusion, one of the really cool things that we ended up discovering today is how windows affect occlusion now. So what we did is we realized if we shot out a pane of glass on Shoreline outside, like at the resort where there's those two long hallways with all the glass panes, if we shot out a pane of glass, it started to sound a little different. And then what I said was, okay, well, why don't we go shoot out a whole bunch and then we can listen, and I would stand kind of at the threshold where the glass panes were back intact, and this is what happened. Okay, one sec. And then I shot out a couple of more just to see if that threshold, the occlusion threshold, moved. And it did. Okay, now do it again. It actually works. Stuff like this shows that the path tracing in the game actually works the way that it's supposed to in certain circumstances. Now, obviously, there is a whole lot of other places that we have to go and test and all this other stuff in order to see how all of this occlusion works. And there are places that are super janky. Stairwells on places like Shoreline, super weird. If you're standing on the first floor and you hear somebody running on 2 or on 3 or on the roof, it sounds like it's been misplaced. The occlusion layers don't seem like they sound right. What was the muffled sound of 2 from yesterday is now the sound of somebody on 3. And what was the sound of somebody on 3 yesterday is now the sound of somebody on the roof if you're standing on the first floor of Shoreline Resort. But the opposite doesn't work that way. If you're standing on the 3rd floor of Resort and you hear somebody on the 2nd floor, it sounds muffled, like what we're used to hearing from them being 1 floor away. If they're on the 1st floor, it sounds like what we're used to hearing from them being 2 floors away. So when it's top to bottom, it seems like it works fine. When it's bottom up, it doesn't work fine. It's very, very odd. But what is cool is how the dynamism of the audio works with doors open and closed now. When you have a door closed, there's a lot of muffling going on. Only from the player characters or from like other scavs and stuff. It doesn't have that same effect with interactables, stuff like boxes or filing cabinets. They still make the same level of noise whether the door's open or not, so that probably still stands to need some adjustment. All right, now open the door again and walk around more. However, none of those things involve the VoIP system whatsoever. The VoIP system seems like it took a pretty major step backward.
What if we tried with VoIP, just like opening and closing the door? See the difference?
You sound clear as a bell with the door closed right now. For whatever reason now, whenever you queue up your VoIP, people are heard from significantly further away than what they were at one point in time. It feels like it's an additional like 10 meters from what it was before. But even more so than that is the verticality of it. There is no occlusion at all for the VoIP system right now, by the way. Walls, windows, concrete, and dirt do not matter. Wait, Saint, are you underground right now?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
What the fuck? Wait, what? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
What? For instance, if we go to reserve, one of the things that we always had tested whenever they come out with an audio patch is standing on either the 3rd floor or like the roof of the pawn building and listening for gunshots from the large like drum tunnel, the big culvert pipe styled bunker tunnel right as you're approaching D2. If people shot into the roof from there, if you're standing on pawn, you could hear the ricochets, you could hear gunshots. You wouldn't hear footsteps and people running around, but you could hear all of the gunshots and ricochets and noise and stuff. That has now been made even worse because now the VoIP doesn't have anything occluding it. So if I'm standing on the roof of Pawn and my buddy Saint happens to be underground and decides to key up VoIP, this is what it sounds like.
I'm all the way down here.
And we tried to take this to some relevant, extreme level of ridiculousness, and I had Saint go up on top of the hill outside of the radar, and then I ran all the way down underneath it through that spiral staircase all the way down to the D2 tunnel underneath radar, and then was able to have a conversation with him, albeit it was much more quiet. I was able to have a conversation with him, which is probably a vertical difference distance-wise of about 60 meters, somewhere around there. Hi.
Oh my god.
I'm all the way at the bottom.
You're very quiet, but I can hear you.
I can hear you fine. I'm all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, you sound further away, but there's no muffling at all. You just sound quieter. That's crazy.
Wait, can you hear this? So vertically, it seems as though your VoIP, voice, whatever, travels significantly further than if you are laterally having those conversations. There's going to absolutely be some crazy meme stuff that people will be able to come up with where they can be, you know, significantly different, rather untouchable places comparatively speaking, like in reserve where people underground are talking to people above ground. So we do have a step forward in terms of audio dynamism, but a pretty big step backward in terms of VoIP, I guess, audio dynamism. One last audio thing, there does seem like there's some new death sounds for certain scav death noises as well as PMCs. Hutch ended up actually recording a couple of pieces of content that got clipped when he was playing earlier this morning that he showed me that I wanted to share with you guys, where he ended up killing a scav and then he killed another PMC on a labs run. And you can hear that there's like this really long, drawn out, agonizingly like painful cry as they kind of die more slowly. I don't know if this is from like a stomach hit of some kind or if it's like a limb damage hit. But as we know, like back in the day, it used to be whether you killed them by a headshot or not, they wouldn't just drop right away. They would kind of cry out even if it was a head hit. But now it seems as though that's changed. When you hit them in the head, they kind of slump over and die right away. There's really no cry. It seems like they're kind of adding like these more agonizing cries when people or when scavs, whatever, die from stomach shots or from limb damage, something like that. They don't just have like these shorter duration death sounds. But anyway, that's what I have for this video, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming and checking it out. Thank you so much for spending all of your time that you have with me. It absolutely means the world to me that you guys are here. So thank you so much for being here. I really, really do appreciate you. If you would consider subbing the channel, that would be amazing. I really, really would appreciate it. And in the meantime, if you want to come by the stream, I'll be live tomorrow morning, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, somewhere around there for Friday. And we'll have some fun. Okay? Twitch.tv/OnePeg. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.